Hello.
Good morning, Dr. Hora.
Hello, Jan. Hello, everyone.
Um, you're here to grow your tea here?
Yes, I'm glad to hear that.
We're discussing a problem called midlife crisis, and somebody here just said this is the old folks' home.
So there is no more crisis.
Obviously, the topic has attracted many people in this age category. And we have been introduced it this morning. Maybe I'll give Anne a chance to say something about it.
All right.
Hello.
Hello, Anne.
We were speaking about the fact that what has been called the midlife crisis has to do actually with an existential awakening to the inadequacy of the self and its concern to bring about meaningful life.
Yes.
And that it's really a great gift of grace that at some point in our lives, the self-concern to make its dreams come true gets into enough trouble that we have to call it into question. We spoke of the term shipwreck, which you used, that when our self-value shipwreck, which they inevitably do, and we begin to notice this, although it feels very bad to us, it's actually a very good time and an opportunity to begin to discover that we are not here for that self, we're here for God.
Right. Man's extremity is God's opportunity.
Man's extremity is God's opportunity. Do you have any comments you would care to make about the so-called phenomenon of midlife crisis or midlife issues, or shall we get on?
I think you summarized it very well. At a certain point, especially around the age of 40, and that is a very significant number, the number 40, which we encounter very frequently in the Bible. Those of you who are familiar with the Bible, you will find that Moses spent 40 days on Mount Sinai, and Buddha sat 40 days under the bo tree, and Jesus spent 40 days fasting in the desert. And Dante describes that around the age of 40, he has begun to become aware of certain changes in his view of life, which led him then to heightened creativity when he wrote the Divine Comedy. And there are many other references to the number 40, both in the Bible and Eastern religions. And apparently 40 is the watershed where man begins to awaken to the fact that being here for oneself only leads to suffering, and being here for others doesn't work very well either. So he begins to look around and seek for some answers, existential answers. And that's what probably in our culture is called a midlife crisis. Women stop menstruating at that age, so there is forced upon us a changed outlook and questioning, what is this all about? What is life? What are we here for? Who are we anyway? And what is the secret of fulfillment? And how could we prosper harmoniously? How could life be meaningful in any way? It is very strange experience which is called the human condition. So we enter the search around that time, and we're becoming increasingly motivated to find answers. First of all, because previously nothing worked, and second of all, because there is a fear that time is running out. All right, I will not take more time from you, so it wouldn't run out.
Do you have any hopeful comments to say about when it will end?
The search never ends, but life improves step by step in proportion as we learn to live according to the 11 principles of metapsychiatry.
We say much skeptical a year, will it be 11 years? Yes, Vera.
Good morning, Dr. Hora and Vera.
Yes, Vera.
I just really recognize this middle age crisis. All this 2 or 3 years, if I look back, I recognize all the tensions of just talking, try to extend the parenthood,
Yes.
and so our child is growing up, so we try to adopt other children, and also part my husband that we recognize that.
You are gluttons for suffering.
Yeah. But I think I start recognizing something that I am holding on, and I would like to be helping that.
What is that?
I'm taking care of actually, or the family, my husband and our son, taking care of a 85-year-old lady, and we live with her.
Yes.
And it's not really on a salary basis, but we just live with her and exchanging. But sometimes it's overextending how much one gives, or we live for the other when question comes up. And then last month he had a major operation, and I started feeling really bad myself, good about myself. I felt, now I have a little baby I can take care of. And it just came in my mind today, this morning. Maybe that's the reason I'm keeping that position.
Yes.
And do you think so? So I can extend. If I couldn't adopt children, my son is growing up and I'm happy about it.
Yes.
So the marriage relationship is kind of turning to a companionship.
Yes.
And now I feel good I have this baby.
To take care of.
To take care of. But
Yes.
somehow I had just a week ago had a job offering which was really pleasant, and I took it.
Yes.
But I shifted over to my husband and to my son the responsibility to take care of the baby. And I don't think it could go too far. Bye.
Yes.
So do you think I'm trying to hold on my self-food?
Well, whenever something makes you feel good, it is advisable to question your motivation. You see, being here for others is socially very nice and laudable, but existentially it may be a form of hypocrisy or just seeking to confirm a fantasy about ourselves, how wonderful we are, or perhaps hoping that God will reward us in a special way for being so generous and kind. Now, of course, we do not advocate callous disregard and coldness and non-caring, but it is important to be aware of our motives, whether we are just engaged in self-confirmatory activities and fantasies, or whether we are genuinely here for God and expressing love intelligence as instruments of God. Because unless our love and our generosity is expressive of God's love, things have a tendency to go sour. Our generosity can turn sour because it's self-confirmatory. So it's very important to scrutinize our motives. And apparently you have discovered that it makes you feel good to care for someone and to be generous. Now, feeling good is not really the issue in generosity, but fulfilling the will of God is the issue in generosity. We are good so that God may be manifested through us. And then there is no self-confirmatory pollution in our activities, our responses, and the benefits are 100 times better for all concerned.
Yeah, when you're talking, to me, I just recognized maybe I had a sort of calculative thinking towards the situation, but more I'm realizing that's not the thing to help anybody and to be generous. The generosity is the godly gift.
Yes, right.
So if I have my physical health, anybody can do it.
Yes.
And but I think I have a hope in a sense, maybe I could inherit them something from that lady if I bring right my job.
I see. You see, then the motivation is not quite pure, is that it?
Yes, that's so bad.
That's right. So,
Kind of Nicky.
yes.
Thank you. I feel going to think more about it.
You're welcome, Vera.
Hi, Dr. Bird, this is Marilyn.
Yes, Marilyn.
I have had a lot of fears come up lately when I realized that the self is never going to be what I want it to be. And I have a real conflict of interest because although I realize this, I am still very interested in keeping up the self and in keeping up my body and staying healthy and looking good. Only my body is not cooperating. So I've had all kinds of physical symptoms. It seems that whatever I try to do, it doesn't work out. If I jog, my back hurts, and so I started to swim, and I would swim 20 laps, and my shoulder would be killing me. And just a whole bunch of physical symptoms, and I've been very discouraged. And well, Anne made a distinction between despair and depressed. I don't know. In despair, and I would like, right now I've talked to you before about a pinched nerve, which keeps coming back.
Yeah.
And when I started jogging again, that's what happened. My back started to hurt again.
Yes.
So I'd like help with this.
Well, maybe your motivation is not quite right for these physical activities. Maybe that needs to be changed. What is the right motivation for running and swimming and working and bending and jumping?
To run for God, for the joy of running.
That's right. Of course. You have to spiritualize your motivation on every level. A pain is just self-confirmatory idea, usually associated with frustration and resentment. Pain is an angry thought, as we say. So maybe you are angry or frustrated that you cannot run as well as somebody else. Maybe there is a competitive thought behind your physical activities.
Yeah, I can see that there is.
Yes? Well, that's unhealthy because it's based on comparison. You are a unique spiritual individual manifestation of God. There is no basis for comparison.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Hora.
You're welcome, Marilyn.
Dr. Hora,
Yes.
this is Betty.
Yes, Betty.
Does God want us to run or exercise to keep in shape?
God wants us to manifest omniactive love intelligence. And when you go skiing, you have to ski for God. And when you have to run for God. And when you rest for God. Nothing, everything that we do or don't do must be to the glory of God. If there is self-confirmatory thought behind it, it's going to be difficult and complications may set in.
Would you maybe have to exercise, though, to be in good enough shape to be able to ski at all? To ski for God?
Well, that's okay. You can exercise. If your consciousness is on the beam, then everything you do will be intelligent, effortless, and effective. It is the Father who worketh in you to do and to will of his good pleasure.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Dr. Hora, this is Marjorie.
Yes, Marjorie.
Earlier, Anne mentioned a quote by Joel Goldsmith, I believe. We are not on the spiritual path unless the fear of death is healed.
What we are not on the spiritual path
Unless the fear of death is healed.
unless the fear of death is healed.
And I was considering this because she continued to talk about how the midlife crisis also is an idea that how much longer do we have left, and the fear that we may not have many years left to live and so on. And I've always thought, recently at least in the last couple of years, that I wasn't afraid of death. And then as I considered this idea this morning, I realized that what I'm afraid of is that I'm afraid I will die like my father did or like my mother did. And I guess I am initially afraid of death. I'd like to understand what it
So
is.
you are not afraid of death, you are afraid of dying.
I'm sorry, pardon me?
You're not afraid of death, you're afraid of dying.
Yes. What is the difference between my not being afraid of death but afraid of dying?
Death is not a problem, dying is the problem because dying is an experience.
So I'm really afraid of the experience.
Right.
Well, it seems like the experience isn't really real.
That's right, you see.
So what am I afraid of?
What are you afraid of? Of dreaming something. Experiences are dreams.
Oh, I'm just continuing to be afraid of the dream that I have. Or a fantasy.
That's right.
Or I'm continuing to fantasize this or something.
In reality, there is no fear. There is no anxiety. There is just PAGL. Now, the more we live an experiential life, the more there will be fear and especially a dread of dying, because we interpret life as experiential. But in metapsychiatry, we are learning the difference between experiencing something and understanding something or realizing something. And we understand that experiences are dreams. At night, we dream in pictures. During the day, we dream in experiences. Reality is not experiential. It is awareness.
So with these experiences, for instance, if we experience pain or like a pinched nerve or something, and that's really, if we're studying the spiritual path, that's kind of a clue for us to become aware of what is needed, see something beyond this experience.
Well, certainly, of course. Man's extremity is God's opportunity. So what you're afraid of is the experience of dying, which you imagine to be very unpleasant.
Yeah.
So you don't want no unpleasantness in your life.
Right.
Right. Now you have to become more interested in awareness. Awareness is never unpleasant. Awareness of spiritual existence, spiritual life, which has neither beginning nor end, and which is without suffering.
Thank you, Dr. Hora.
You're welcome.
Hello, Dr. Hora, it's Roberta.
Yes, Roberta.
I confronted one of my illusions this week. I realized I have a little girl idea that to be truly happy, one has to have special love. And I don't. And therefore, I'm not happy. And it dawned on me in my meditation that this really was a devious trick of my ego to keep me from loving God. And that I could continue, I could be 90 years old and still not have a special love. Foolish life, everything has, it would be better to have, life would be better if I had someone special to love me and I could love him. And it dawned on me that I was fooling myself and that this was a trick of the ego. And I felt very sad. Probably what Anne was talking about is there.
Now, this is not a trick of the ego, Roberta.
Okay, that's a thought change. Okay, could you help me then with that?
This is a horizontal perspective.
That means that I find my happiness in a person rather than in God.
That's right, sure.
Oh, I had the idea that this was just an illusion that I was buying into. Okay. Now I'm wrong.
You got the wrong misconception.
I got the wrong misconception. Great. Here I thought, I thought it was so clear before I asked the question.
So now you got confused a little.
I see. Okay, so it is horizontal thinking.
That's right.
So I realized how foolish the idea was.
Well, let's hope that you did.
Well, intellectually, I really don't know if how would I know I know it? The
Well,
idea came to me.
what is needed is the awareness of God as infinite love, which is individual and universal at the same time. And when you can develop an awareness of being loved by this infinite love, and you will see how blessed your life is, how things are working together for good, and you learn to be grateful, then you will know that you are loved with a special kind of love, which is invariable. It never lets you down. It is not even the shadow of turning, and you will find your peace and contentment. But as long as you seek love in a horizontal dimension of consciousness, there will be always frustration.
So I need to look for demonstrations, but I also need to be aware of it.
Yes, you need to be aware of God's infinite love, which includes you.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Dr. Hora, this is Linda.
Yes, Linda.
As I study the principles of Vedic psychiatry and try to put them into practice and turn away from all the things that I thought were going to make me happy but didn't, I noticed that I have this restlessness and I don't know what to do. And I have this kind of lingering, it isn't like boredom, but I have this kind of fear of empty time and of filling my days with things. And in particular, I have this sort of obsession that I have to go on a trip somewhere. And now that my children are getting older, and one of them will be going off to college in a year, I think we never took a family vacation. So I go through and I look at travel ads. We have all these fantasies, and I think we have to, like, time's running out, and now we have to get sort somewhere. And that doesn't seem, it seems contrived somehow. And so I'd like to go somewhere.
Yes.
So, but I don't want to, then I think, now I'm doing it to say I have no thinking about that. Maybe if I could see an issue in it, it would help. I could resolve it.
Yeah. Well, if you expect that travel will bring you happiness, you will be sadly mistaken. Travel can bring you many interesting, exciting experiences. And it can be educational, perhaps. But happiness has nothing to do with it. It is a heightened awareness of the good of God, which is needed. You know the first principle?
Yes, I know that it to be only aware of the good of God.
Thou shalt have no other interest before the good of God, which is spiritual. So if you contemplate this principle and devote a great deal of attention to it, perhaps that will solve the whole situation and bring you a sense of PAGL.
Okay, thank you, Doctor.
You're welcome.
Hello, Dr. Roy. This is Fern.
Yes, Fern.
Dan said in her presentation, and I have a little different understanding of depression and despair, and I'd like to understand the difference between depression, despair, and a midlife crisis that hits an individual where they become extremely anxious and begin to manage anxiety. And Anne talked about that the depression seems to be very prevalent
as a part of any crisis, but particularly in midlife, and that during a depression, there's a sense of loss of our attachment to our selfhood or our fantasies about what we were going to get out of life, but there's still a clinging to it. We still want it. And the depression exists as long as we still want it. And in despair, there seems to be a greater opportunity to see that life is whole and is already unfolding perfectly in God's divine harmony, because we've given up. In other words, there's a sense of complete futility about trying to get our fantasy or experiences to work. Could you expand a little bit on the depression phenomena and despair, and then what the anxiety would be when we see that we are not able to make human life work, or just the anxiety of facing the day during this kind of crisis?
Now, perhaps here it would be helpful to consider a few definitions which would help us bring clarity into various of these terms. Let's start with mourning, and there is grief. So let us try to define these concepts. Mourning is the pain of parting with a cherished person, place, thing, or idea. It's the pain of separation. Depression is repressed rage. Grief is self-pity. And despair is a severe state of frustration. So if you keep these definitions in front of you, you will not be confused by the variety of concepts. Shall we go over them again?
Yes.
Mourning is the pain of separation from a cherished person, place, thing, or idea. Depression is repressed rage. Grief is self-pity. Despair is severe frustration.
When you say depression is suppressed rage,
Yes.
at what? What would be the
What?
object of? We've also said that depression is a sense of loss.
Well, it's good to separate, differentiate it from mourning.
I see.
You see, Jesus said, "Blessed are they that mourn, for they shall be comforted." So mourning is good for you.
Yes.
Depression is not so hot.
Okay.
And grief, of course, is self-pity. And despair is severe frustration.
So in the despair, we still have not given up the desire to get what we want.
That's right.
Frustration is not getting what we want.
Of course.
And what would be the phenomena of anxiety in such a way when an individual wakes up each morning and faces tremendous anxiety at having to face another day?
Well, anxiety is always an indication that we want something that is either socially or existentially invalid. For instance, if you want to punch somebody in the nose very much in front of people, you get an anxiety attack because you want it and you know that he cannot do this. Or if you want to survive a situation, you may be have an existential anxiety, or you don't want to be annihilated psychologically or emotionally. You can have an existential anxiety attack and such. So anxiety is not something that belongs into these categories. It's just a symptom of these four situations: mourning, depression, grief, and despair. Or in all these situations, there is anxiety, but it's just an aspect of it.
Thank you, Dr. Murray.
You're welcome.
Dr. Hora, it seems that in the crisis that we are discussing, the midlife crisis, the frustration that we are not getting what we want,
Yes,
and it seems that all our wants are experiencing bankruptcy.
right.
And so isn't the solution seems to be in a shift to what God wants,
Definitely.
to live here to be here for God.
That's right.
And you have mentioned that that is attained by becoming aware of awareness.
Yes,
Now, it seems that it's so far in life, we have been pushing ourselves or our issues or our projects, or we have been very active or aggressive in pursuing certain things. And when we turn to God, then maybe according to the principle, we let God help us,
yes,
or we let God do the expressing.
yes.
Now that is kind of a mystery, and I would like if you could explain what that is, what it means, this self-expressing presence of God. It doesn't seem to be that we can do anything, and yet we need to cooperate with it. And also, it seems that awareness that you talked about is not anything static or passive, but it's a dynamic force. Is that correct? Maybe could you explain that further?
Yes, of course, nothing is static in life, especially not in divine life, because as you know, we understand God to be omniactive, love intelligence. So it's not static, it's dynamic. And awareness is just a faculty which we all have, but which needs to be awakened within us, to be aware of the presence and of this dynamic force which we call God. And this awareness emerges in us if we rise above feelings, sensations, emotions, possessions, and interpersonal relationships, which we call interactions. As we rise out of the 5 gates of hell, we discover awareness. For instance, most people will say, I feel very angry.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
Now, on the spiritual path, we wouldn't say, I feel angry. We would say, I am aware of anger welling up. I'm aware of waves of anger. So it's not our anger, and it's not a feeling, it is a phenomenon, a thought, an experience, a dream. So when we have reached the level of awareness, things come to our attention, but they do not come into our experience.
So when this awareness is aware of anger welling up,
Yes,
does that have any effect on that anger? Or on my perspective of it?
definitely, sure.
And what is that?
It subsides. It curls up in embarrassment and leaves
Uh-huh.
because it doesn't make any sense.
Yeah. So,
So the awareness we also speak of as the transcendent observer.
okay.
The transcendent observer or the living soul is aware. The human person is always stuck in his feelings and emotions, which psychologists like to dabble in it very much.
There's a tendency to think that we are aware of only active love intelligence. That I'm sitting here and I'm looking at something there that is only active love intelligence that I'm aware of. But
Well,
actually,
it's not.
there's no separation.
Right. It's not there. It's just is.
So that moment I was with only active love intelligence.
Right.
And that way I am actually then transcending the anger.
Exactly. Exactly.
And so the anger, no matter how much it is dwelling there, cannot go anywhere as long as we keep our mind on that awareness.
It's no part of you. It's just a phenomenon.
And is that also true for other experiences like pain or
Definitely.
whatever physical or mental things are surging through?
Definitely. Even dying, which Marjorie is afraid of.
Yes, in other words, we would transcend that too.
Right. We could watch ourselves die and have no fear about it.
And we will die.
Yes. Well, what would die? The illusion of personal mind and personhood as a physical body. This illusion dies.
So we
The-
discover that it is really nothing.
Right, it's no part of us. The living soul never dies.
So we will continue to live then in a different state, even though in the body, but it's not the same.
Yes, but it wouldn't be different. The great blessing of the teachings of Jesus and the spiritual seers is that we can be dead while we are alive. And so the experience of dying is just a conscious dream.
And that we wake up in the chapter of.
Right. Whosoever liveth and believeth on me shall never see death, he can never die. And even if he were dead, yet shall he live.
In other words, this is available to the dead too. Is that what Jesus meant there?
No, it's only available to the enlightened ones. The dead people think that they are dead.
But what does Jesus mean then when he said, even if you are dead? Didn't he say that?
Yes, but you will think you are dead, but you're not really dead.
In other words, it's possible to discover that you are not dead.
Well, whether you'll discover it or not, I don't know, but he implies that nobody really dies. The dream of life in matter dies. And if you identify yourself with this material life, then there will be an experience of dying. Is this difficult to understand?
Well, it's just very interesting. It's a lot of food for thought. Maybe there are some questions about it. Dr. Hora, this is Bill.
Yes, Bill.
Could you explain death?
I just did. You usually come a little too late.
I just thought I heard you explain dying.
Yeah, there is no death. There is the experience of dying. And experiences are dreams.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
So nobody's really, that's the only dream here that.
That's right.
Oh, that's interesting. Well, there's another way through. Or what I said. Said, look. Yeah.
Physical life is a dream, and physical death is also a dream. Reality is spiritual. It is never born, and it never dies, and is hid with Christ in God.
The physical death also a dream.
Right, of course.
Dr. Horton, go again.
Yes, Bill.
You were talking about, I need some help on awareness. We can be aware of the experience, either good or bad.
No, Bill, to be precise, we experience experiences.
But we can't be aware of them?
Yeah, well, it's a matter of semantics, but it would be more precise and helpful to speak about experiencing our experiences.
Who is experiencing the experience?
The experience is experiencing the experience.
Who is experiencing experience? So it's just an experience, there's nothing going on.
The dreamer and the dream are one, Bill. Can you understand that?
Okay.
Now let me say to you, suppose you are having a fantasy that you are with a very sexy, beautiful woman in bed.
What was that? I just the last story. What was? Oh, you said okay.
In bed.
In bed.
And suddenly you are experiencing an erection. Now, what is this erection? Isn't this a thought?
Yes.
A thought translates itself into an erection.
Okay.
So the erection and the thought are one, right?
Right.
So the whole thing is just a thought or a dream. You are dreaming that you're having sex.
But am I aware? Something is aware of that. I mean, something is looking and seeing this.
The dream and the dreamer are one. So the dreamer's dreams that he is having sex.
What is awareness doing at this time?
Nothing.
Now I know why I don't like awareness. When you say awareness is doing nothing at this time, when you just say nothing, it's just aware.
Yes.
What is it aware of at that time?
It is aware that you are dreaming.
Oh, so it's not aware of the experience, it's aware of the dream. It could be aware of the dream.
He's aware of you of being in ignorance of spiritual reality.
It could be aware of that.
Yeah.
Thank you, Dr. Hora.
You're welcome, Bill.
Hello, Dr. Hora. Roberta,
Yes, Roberta.
you said that horizontal perspective when you discussed what my question is not the same as the ego, and they both seem invalid. What is the difference?
So what?
So what?
Yes.
Oh. Well, okay.
What are you quibbling about?
Oh, I'm quibbling. I'm not picking again. Okay. No, because I had the illusion that it was the ego that was fooling me, and you said no, it was horizontal perspective.
Yeah.
They both seem wrong anyway.
Yeah.
I just thought that anything that's invalid is the ego.
The two wrongs will never make a right.
Wrong will never make a right.
Yes.
Okay. All right, first dinner. Hello, Dr. Hora.
Yes.
Back to the fear of
Who is this?
the Fern.
Yes, Fern.
I'm still mulling over the dreamer dreaming that it's
Having sex.
dying,
A what?
not dying,
Yes. Yes.
and it's very afraid as long as it thinks that the dream is life.
Yes, right.
And so whenever we experience fearfulness or pain or being stuck in a physical body,
Yes.
then we could say that at that moment we see that as life, and it's very fearful to dream that this is the only life we have.
That's right. Sure.
And so as soon as we turn to the truth that is not our life, that would be the healing of the fear, as soon as there's some understanding.
That's correct, Fern. Yes.
So it's the acceptance of the dream of life in the body or in human experience that is so frightening to us.
Exactly.
That's very helpful.
I hope you'll explain it to Bill.
So, and then there's awareness. Awareness is a power, a
Yes.
healing power,
Yes.
understanding.
Yes, it is our oneness with the divine consciousness.
That is to say that.
Right.
Yes.
Dr. Georgiana,
Yes, Georgiana.
could we have sex and awareness at the same time?
No.
Okay.
No, sex is a dream.
Okay. And so we have I'm just thinking of myself, well, I have a real reluctance to give that one up.
Yeah. Nobody is twisting your arm
Right.
to give it up. You don't have to give it up, you just have to understand it.
So as our interest in being aware of the good comes along, then does our interest in sex subside?
That's right.
How long does that take?
Under him. You still have a few years.
Okay. Thank you.
Dr. Hora, this is Bill.
Yes, Bill. Don't be so sad.
I can hear you laughing back there.
When you talked about awareness, it seems to be the dynamic in awareness, that there seems to be some power in being aware.
You bet.
What is that power?
God.
So then what we achieve from awareness is just watching God at work.
That's right.
I got it.
Well.
Isn't that wonderful?
Everybody is rooting for you.
Dr. Hora, this is Marjorie.
Yes, Marjorie.
And what I am beginning to see is that life is not what we think or what we dream or what we experience.
You ain't kidding,
It's much more than that.
right?
So life is infinite awareness, or life is divine love intelligence.
Yes.
And that has nothing to do with what we think, experience, or
Dream about.
dream about. Right.
Right.
That's such a wonderful perspective. I didn't recognize as well as I was beginning to.
Yes. Tell it to Georgiana. She shouldn't be afraid of losing something.
Dr. Hora, this is Jenny.
Yes, Ginny.
I was struck in the midst of all this conversation. He talked about death, he talked about dying, he talked about midlife crisis, and the only other time I can remember that we've had so much humor in our gift of learning was the night and what the conference we had on suffering.
That's right.
This is a remarkable group.
You know what we say in metapsychiatry? There is nothing more ridiculous than seriousness.
I believe that. Thank you.
You're welcome, Ginny.
Dr. Hora, this is Sheila.
Yes, Sheila.
If at a particular instant we are aware, we become awareness. We're no longer a person. The person,
We are never really a person.
we just think we are.
That's right.
So that can only be moment by moment. The
Well,
awareness.
depends on the degree of enlightenment. The ideal would be to be permanently aware and have a transcendent perspective on the human condition. To look at life through the eyes of God, not Roberta's eyes.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Hora.
You're welcome.
Bye.
Bye.
Wonderful seminar here with you.
Bye, everyone.
Bye-bye.